Good afternoon. It's a response to the group chat's topic about skating currently being in an era that's hyper innovative. That hyper innovation is super redundant right now, lacking in authenticity. Saying that skating basically is overly technical, resulting in skating not being relatable and isolating our community. So I agree, but only within a narrow context. If you widen your perspective of what skating has been in general, I think that it's actually a good thing where we're at. Skating has always been hyper innovative. Ever since the very beginning of skating, we, inventing stair bashes, power slides, mono rolls. Everybody was doing groundwork. We were all, I was skating back then, and we were all, trying to figure out what we can do basically on the ground. And then grinds were invented, and everybody moved over to that, and we were super focused on this niche movement of sliding our skates on a bar or a curb. You really weren't anybody unless you could grind. You had to do grinds. So a Unity was invented. I remember when I first saw a Unity, and I had to do a Unity. I bit, I don't know if it was Julio that first did the Unity, so I bit him. But each of these foundational kind of inventions filter their way into skating and through the community. And you could look at that process, that evolutionary process, as if it is redundant and isolating. But I don't think that's what it is. And I think the proof in that is the explosion of skating at its beginning. We became a very large group of people on this hyper innovation. I think that's really actually what draws people to skating. But each realm of innovation we explore hits a turning point of being just too far, where people feel like it's become absurd almost. So for example, with grinding, the sidewalk, I would say, would be that turning point. What that did is it moved everyone into different areas of exploration, of just expanding skating into being something even bigger. Moving into the whole switch up era, or then to the hammer era, and so on. And each of these eras could have that interpretation of being hyper innovative. Even hammer skating, it was just a different form of innovation. I think that after hammer skating, we hit kind of a midlife crisis, and in my opinion, Colin Brady's invention of the gazelle was the resolution of that midlife crisis, bringing us sort of back to big wheels, back to groundwork where skating began. But right now, I think we're in a good place. Skating is definitely very accessible. It's grown as far as what skating is. We've grown it to encompass so many different aspects and categories and styles and forms. I think some of the proof of that would be in the fact that the rollerblading community is kind of melded with the roller skating community. Or another example would be how it seems to me that internationally, places like Africa or South America, skating really seems to be exploding. I think it's a little short-sighted to say that what's happening right now is actually isolating skating. I think it's the opposite. But it's true. It would be kind of hard to be yourself in this community that fetishizes hyper innovation. Each of our skating is essentially an aggregate of our influences. If everyone's being hyper innovative, but you take influence from a broad spectrum of forms, and you really exploit yourself and your abilities, I think you can be authentic. I was in Vancouver, and Leon asked me how I decide what tricks I do. And I told him that I look at skating as if it's kind of a worldwide conversation. The content that we put out is the contributions to that conversation. And I told him that it would kind of depend on what is happening in that conversation. I try to not say the same thing over and over again. I try not to speak too loudly. I try to say something that has value. Why talk just to talk? Why say it over and over again? I think that's just my own personal philosophy. But I think as far as finding what tricks you should do, it ought to be a matter of listening to the conversation and contributing to the conversation when you have something that is of value. Okay, that's all.